Good morning, Justice Warriors. How are you guys? I hope you guys had a great weekend and a really happy Mother's Day. Um, where to begin? Like my necklace, it's this cool little geometric, like teardrop thing. I love it. But like I always say, we're not here to talk about my jewelry. But that was kind of my first career as a young adult, was being a jewelry designer. So, in case you didn't know that, in case you care. Anyway, hit that like button if you'd be so kind and you feel like it. Share, subscribe. I'm still dealing with the allergies, but I've got my Sudafed on board. I think my brain is working much better. I appreciate you guys being here. Good morning, Leah and Dana. How are you? And hopefully, if you haven't yet caught the one I did Saturday night, you can after we're done with this. I was able to finally do a video when I was waiting for one of my kids in prom, just chaperoning, just making sure there was no funny business. So I was like waiting in the parking lot of the school. I thought, oh, I can do a live like out on the lawn or something, but no Wi-Fi. So I had to go down the street to the McDonald's and park in the bank parking lot right next to McDonald's. So there wasn't too much traffic noise. It's funny, but there were just some things I wanted to say and wanted to touch base with my people. So here we are. Yeah, I've got 4 kids, so they did a really good job this year on Mother's Day. I won't brag, but I'm a happy mama. So the things I wanted to talk about today, I wanted to talk about victim blaming and, of course, not victim blaming. I wanted to talk about complex post-traumatic stress disorder and who's having it, because pretty much I'd say most people in Moscow are probably having it to some degree, especially the close friends, especially family. They'll probably have it for the rest of their lives, you guys. Hopefully they'll be fine, but some of the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder are hopelessness, despair, self-unaliving attempts. I'm not saying that to, give anybody any ideas. I'm saying it because it's the truth, and people need to recognize that. Especially sometimes self-unaliving ideas or self-harm are very abstract, and they need to be dealt with on any level, no matter how abstract. And the reason is because impulse control. Somebody can have great impulse control and say, yeah, well, I feel a little quasi not being alive, like not being here. And then one day they lose their impulse control for whatever reason, and it can be disastrous. So just wanted to bring that up. Let me get a drink of my coffee, please. So everything I say is simply my opinion. It's simply for the sake of conversation. I love opening up a discussion. I'm always looking to learn something. I'm hoping that other people will find my videos educational. One of my mods, Shanda from Squirrels on Fire, when she first started coming into my chats at the end of last year, she had this great thing that I said, I'm going to take that and run with it. And she was like, please do, it's yours. We're going to ungaslight ourselves together. Like, that's what Shanda's take on my channel was Justice A to Z, where you can ungaslight yourself or something like that. Anyway, I came up with a couple of terms over the weekend that I really like. Gaslighting resistance and being gaslight resistant. So a couple of things that happened early on in this Idaho 4 case that we've kind of let slide, I think, lately, and it's important to sometimes review and get back to the basics. We have to remember that the police chief, James Fry, told everyone many times that there were 2 survivors, that he refused to call witnesses, and still to this day refuses to call witnesses. And I like the term surviving witnesses. I'm okay with that. If you guys are okay with it, then then great. We're all on the same page. And of course, we're not always going to be on the same page, and that's okay. I definitely believe in supporting all types of ideas, freedom of speech, and I also really support kindness and just not playing games. Just, again, being gaslighting resistant. So the gaslighting is all about the game playing, and it's so easy to do. It's so easy to be gaslit. It's so easy to get caught up in it and not even realize it. So when Fry was lying about the two surviving witnesses that were there in the house when this happened, he said again and again that they were on the first floor, and that's why they weren't witnesses, and that's why they survived. So we never found out until the affidavit, the arrest affidavit that Brett Payne wrote, that Dylan was in fact on the second floor. And we were all just blown out of the water by that for many reasons. One reason was because we'd been lied to. Another reason was because it made a lot less sense if she was on the second floor that she hadn't heard something. Well, she said she did hear things and see things, so that was inconsistent with Fry's statements previously. But also why she wasn't one of the victims. It doesn't make a lot of sense. If you take your lone wolf theory that we've got a crazy Ted Bundy type, it doesn't make any sense that he would have walked right by somebody. And then came the whole visual snow gaslighting, which apparently, allegedly, Sleuthy Goosey has done the research to determine that the email connected to that social media account that was supposedly Koberger writing online about and being in a social media support group for visual snow, that was not actually the criminal defendant. So that could have well been part of the gaslighting, and it sounds like it is, in an effort to snow us all and say, well, this could explain why he didn't see Dylan when he walked right past her and past her room 3 times. Very highly unlikely. And let me just add in here one of the kind of minor details that isn't so minor in my mind that really makes me not believe that whole lone wolf theory is that there is a step. I always forget if it's going up into the kitchen or down into the kitchen. Doesn't really matter, but there's a step between the kitchen and the living room, one single step, that somebody not familiar with that house passing over it 3 times in a mad frenzy might just, well, trip up on, right? I know I would, even if I was familiar with it. So, so these are things to think about. Law enforcement is an entity that we should be able to trust. They literally have our lives in their hands. They have guns and badges and licenses to kill. And whatever they say is held as the gospel, as it should be, given a perfect world. However, when we've got unscrupulous law enforcement officials that take that and use it to their advantage and say things that are not true, we need to pay attention that they're saying things that might not be true or that aren't true. What in the heck is my hair doing? It's always something. Anyway, this is why I wear hats so much. And I do have a hat if I need it, but it's just ridiculous. So let's see. I wanted to say a couple of things about not blaming victims in any situation. Absolutely any situation. Your typical victim blaming is like back in the old days with an essay, and people would be like, well, what was she wearing? How did she dress? How was she acting? What was she doing? And, ultimately, none of that matters. An act of violence against another person is an act of violence against another person. So it doesn't matter if they're dressed provocatively or, giving signals, whatever, in my opinion. If if somebody's victimized, they're victimized. And telling their story often re-victimizes them, even if people are 100% supportive. But especially if people are not believing them or questioning them. Um, and it so easily becomes victim blaming. So I, of course, don't support any victim blaming whatsoever. We've got 4 unalived 20 and 21-year-olds in house on a college campus late on a Saturday night, early on a Sunday morning. It's a devastating tragedy. I mean, it's a national tragedy. It's an international tragedy, really. I need more coffee. I can't talk. I'll get there. So, yeah, don't convolute victim blaming with trying to find the truth, is what I want to say to you guys right now. We're all trying to make sense of this. And I know over the weekend there's been some ruckus on the streets of YouTube with some anonymous Dave coming out and saying that he knows this and he knows that and he knows the other thing. And we all know that when these things happen, it's most likely bogus. Keep that in mind. But even when we're being gaslit, we're still susceptible to it. That's the problem with gaslighting, is it's really easy to fall into it. So when people are trying to make sense of, well, this was a party house, and we know that Xana's mother and Maddie's father and stepmother had problems with substances, maybe that's part of the equation. Personally, we all are going to have a different take on that. I don't see that as victim blaming to question the issues that were at play. But one of the caveats there is that we all want to try to make sense of a tragedy like this and say, well, this could never happen to us. These people were in the wrong place at the wrong time, making bad choices. I would never do that. I'm smart. I'm safe. I'm nice. I've got good karma because I do all these good things with my life and helping people, blah, blah, blah. The sad thing is that bad things happen to good people often. So don't delude yourself. I think as a culture, as a society, we do that kind of victim blaming, trying to make sense of things, trying to give ourselves a false sense of safety. And I just think it's bullshit. People can become victims when they're making all the right choices, doing all the right things, and it's just a sad fact of life, in my opinion, again. So, you know, there's so much of the catfishing online, especially these days, and people out trying to smart other people, and trolls coming into your chat, trolls coming into your comment section. A lot of these trolls have multiple profiles, and a lot of these trolls, I believe, have an agenda that's not just to be a jerk, but they have a real actual like job to do because there's trouble. Like, how on earth could somebody prioritize dropping into these chats and comment sections? And you guys know, if you're in chats or comment sections, it takes a lot of time and wherewithal to type in your thoughts, your ideas, your questions. Again, whether that's in a live chat or, I'm sorry, I'm missing so many of your comments, I think. Man, I missed a ton of them. And this is one of the problems. Oh my goodness. I'm going to talk about, I've missed a whole bunch of them. How did that happen? Oh, because it says top chat, and that's not what I want. I want live chat. Sorry, you guys. I wasn't ignoring you. So there we go. I'm going to get caught up. I'm going to read some of these out loud. Good morning, Leah and Dana. You guys were the only two that I saw there. And then we've got Becky. Notification just went off. She's wise and mature. Sometimes. Good morning. Good morning, Becky. Annie Ruler. Hey, girl. In Georgia, Leah says, Alistair Grant. You've changed your name, Alistair. Good morning, good morning, good morning. And Rhonda, hey there. Heather. Fry doesn't want any witnesses to go against his narrative. And I think that man and Payne, I think those guys are finding themselves in big trouble. And I think that they are doing a lot of the gaslighting still, a lot of it, in my opinion. I'm going to go ahead and highlight that one, Heather. So, Fry is so suspicious to me. He's just slimy. He's smarmy. He's the cat who ate the canary. I have agreed with both of you, Rhonda and Leah. I like Sleuthy. She's a good inspiration. The picture used on Papa Roger's account sure resembles criminal defendant. So BK was targeted scapegoat from the beginning. He had something to do with it, in my opinion. Just not lone guy, in my opinion. I've got a very similar opinion to that. So yeah, somebody came into my chat the other day and was like, oh, so this is what you think? Putting all these words into my mouth that were none of them. And, you know, just be respectful, people. I mean, I will share my opinion with you guys openly and honestly, even if I feel like it's not popular. I think that we all have a right to that. And especially when you have your own channel, that's kind of the whole purpose. It's not to make other people happy. It's, for me anyway, the purpose of my channel is to try to get to the truth, to try to get to justice for these victims and their families. And sometimes being honest sucks. But you don't want to be reckless with your honesty either. Let's see. Everyone respects her too, even the men. Well, that's just because she's so pretty. People are very superficial, are we not? Self-included. Happy Mother's Day. And I still have a problem with the 8-hour delay and the 4-hour delay. We can't overlook that. We've got a 12-hour delay, you guys. All forensic evidence is shot in 12 hours. We've got at least a 12-hour delay, probably more. And let's see, Monique, hello. Just up, good morning, waiting for my first coffee. Oh, that's the worst. Steal some out of the pot while it's brewing. That's what I do. Yes, I'm on guard with the Dave guy. Oh, it's just atrocious. And, you know, I don't want to insult I do not like talking negatively about anybody. Nobody, especially content creators. And I love to speak positively about other content creators. And like, for instance, last night I was on allegedly with Brittany's chat, and she's a great channel. I really enjoy her work. And she was, without mentioning names, talking about some of these other channels that have been hosting or promoting this whole thing with this witness. And, you know, take it with a grain of salt, in my opinion. But yeah, bashing people is never appropriate in my idea of how to approach not just true crime online, but in life in general. You know, just stay in your lane, stay positive. It's your life, it's your story, so make it what you want. I only have one YouTube, had it for years. Let's see. Yeah, the popular opinion. I have some friends that I have realized just like to be argumentative, especially with a couple of beers, zip the lip, you know. And I always say alcohol and social media, bad combination. And that's not to be judgmental. That's just being real. We all know it's a bad combination, but so many people do it. So many people do it. Fortunately for me, I can honestly say that I completely gave up all substances and all alcohol before I started doing social media routinely. So, very fortunate. Because, yeah, once it's out there, it never goes away. And, yeah, to promote the drinking and being on social media is extremely reckless. Like, not as physically reckless as drunk driving, but actually maybe, because people get freaking crazy and they go real life. I don't believe Mabbott went to the scene. Well, I'd heard on the gossip grapevine that she was there prior to when they finally allowed her into the crime scene at 5 o'clock. So she got there well before the lead detective and the sergeant. And that lead detective and sergeant taking 4 hours to get there is not only highly suspicious, but to me, what's even more highly suspicious is the police department not investigating them for the delay. But it's on the supervisors in the police department to both do that investigation and to have made sure that people got there in a timely manner. So it's not even Corporal Payne and Sergeant Blaker's faults. It's really Chief Fry and Captain Lanier. And I wouldn't even say that's my opinion. I'd say that's freaking fact, and they know it. Don't let them gaslight you. My comment went away. I was saying if you're shocked faced, it takes you 8 hours to call 911. Why would you get a tattoo right away? To remind you of that trauma. Such a great comment, Rhonda. Let me get caught up with you guys. That was just 3 minutes ago, so I'm almost there. Sorry your comment went away. I don't know. Sometimes there's just glitches. Overflow hot stuff. Yes, exactly. Michael McAllister. And makes you wonder why. And losing Caden was it for Dave, allegedly. I think he sees no end. If Dave is real, I mean, he's hiding his identity, which, again, in a situation like that, you're not safe to come forward, are you? But I'm not saying that Dave is real. I've been ignoring his thing altogether. I just listen to other content creators talk about it. Because, we had Kim, who I think is pretty much 100% bogus. We had the one that called into T-Rev, which I find credibility with personally. That's just my own decision. And, some people think Kim is okay. I think widely people don't. I mean, who thought that Megan Cole was okay? I never did. And I still don't. And I doubt I ever will. I know I've deleted Facebook posts after happy hour with the girls the next morning. That's funny. How you pronounce my name is Scottish with a D and not a T. Cool. I can see Dave speaking up now for losing Caden, but coming to that YouTube is not helpful. He needs to go to the authorities or even Ann Taylor if the police department is corrupt. So, yeah, very, very good points, Heather. 100%. I'm with you on that. And my dad's family is Scottish. I have Scottish blood. I still have my concerns about the car driver of the BK showing. Yes. And that Chief Fry had been saying we need to talk to the occupants of that car. A lot of people have been bringing that back up, which again, it's really good to go back to the basics and to go back to the early reports, because oftentimes that's where you'll find the most truth. Other lifestyles need investigated. Lee Knoll, I love that I misread your comment here. That's too funny. I said other lifestyles need investigated, which, I'm glad that I misread it, because sometimes I think we can all think like that. But you said officer lifestyles need investigated. And, there are so many fine officers and there's so many amazing first responders with only good intentions and no corruption whatsoever. But when there's any corruption, it's sort of like cancer. You can't have just a little bit of corruption. You can't just be a little bit pregnant. You can't just have a little bit of cancer. You either have it or you don't. So any corruption, there's just no room for it. And there honestly is usually some. It's hard to weed those people out of departments. But if they're in a position of leadership, then the department's toast, in my opinion. Who truly drove? Was it BK? Hey, lady, Phantasmic Ether. Ungaslight yourself. Exactly. That was what I opened with, getting back to the basics. And yeah, my allergies are still there. Like, I don't know if I sound weird to you guys. I sound really weird to myself, but I'm okay with sounding weird as long as my brain functions. I can't do lives when my brain's not functioning. Hopefully I didn't just jinx it, right? Um, let's see. I think Pam WSU was a good mom caller. Thank you for reminding me of her name, Leah. I forgot her name because she didn't use it at first. Um, and let's see. Everyone has forgotten Pam. I know. I think so. You know, she wasn't going for the drama. That's the difference. That's why I believe Pam, but not Kim. And she was, even though she was a little hyped up, because you would be when you're going onto somebody's YouTube, she wasn't a spaz. Like, when these people are so like ADHD, it's hard to believe them. So even if someone's a valid, trustworthy individual with integrity, if they're talking really fast and jumping around, they're not going to get taken as seriously. So you just got to slow yourself down. And that just goes without saying in real life as well as online. I still think that the Kylie Rodney case and Idaho 4 case have connections about that Ashlyn Couch from San Diego and her brother. The brother looks like that Mr. Sock that came on MC's live. Oh, Dane, I forgot about Mr. Sock. Didn't Mr. Sock whip it out at one point in time on, I don't know if that was on that live or someone else's. Oh my goodness. But that was a thing that a lot of folks were doing. So I was starting to bring up the Hard Truths live the other night. She did an amazing 2-hour plus live, and I came into it late, and somebody was saying, scroll back. I made a comment. I want you to read it. And just so we all know, you can't do that, period. Like, content creators are working really hard to keep up with the chat and keep up with their show. And I don't even care if you have a good comment. You can't say scroll back. If somebody wants to scroll back, then they can. It's not a good idea because it messes with your chat. And I think that a lot of trolls try to get people to scroll back and get people off track. So if you have a comment that gets missed, just copy and paste it. And allegedly with Brittany had a good idea, like put like the little flash thing emoji at the beginning of your comment to try to get some attention. Don't put too many emojis, Michael McAllister, because those can get, it's a distraction, and it can get like automatically removed, I think, just like the all caps can, because it's like you're shouting. So anyway, Hard Truth was really good with trying to go back and find it, but there was nothing there. There was like a little comment that was not really anything. And, I know that I've had people do that in my lives a couple of times when I was new at this. And I figured out really quickly that it was insincere people that were trying to throw things off. So if you're getting insincere people that are trying to throw off your content, it's probably because your content is too close to home and they're concerned. They're not just having fun being crazy people out on the streets of YouTube, although we all know there's those too. Beware, right? And you just can't trust anybody. Sometimes you can't even trust yourself, right? Hey, Sis Vicious, I haven't seen you in so long. Good to see you. Her name is Paula. Paula, you mean Pam Paula? Daniel? Hello. I think you sound great. Totally there with you. These darn Midwest allergies. Ohio's bad, but I think Minnesota's even worse. I'm not sure. Anyway, but yeah, there's pros and cons to living anywhere. Dana, I remember that too about Mr. Sucks on my hands and LOL. Yeah, I remember when Zav Girl had 2 MFs take out their junk in her lives. So that was the thing that happened didn't happen on Hard Truth the other night, but the person that was trying to make her back scroll said, let me on your panel, let me on your panel. She wasn't even having a panel. I was really suspicious of this person, and maybe they are fine and that was misplaced suspicion. But no, you don't let people on your panel that you don't know, period. And you don't let people on your panel when you're not having a panel. I mean, it was weird. And I was just like, oh man, I hope she doesn't let this person come onto her non-existent panel, because they'll probably whip it out. And then you have to shut off your live. You have to edit it out, and it takes a while to get it back up and running. When Zav Girl had 2 people do that in her live simultaneously, and that was with the Kylie Rodney case, of course they were in collusion, but it took her, I think, 48 hours or so to get her live back up. And that's when things were hot and heavy. And that was, their mission was accomplished. Evil Exists has some good videos, Rhonda. I'm a huge supporter of that channel. And I like that they're short, they're concise, they're right on the money. I don't agree with everything Evil Exists says, just like a lot or most, hopefully, of my supporters don't agree with everything I say. That's 100% expected. I mean, I don't agree with everything I say. It's just like life is complicated, and things change over time. So, and we all make mistakes. Yes. Sorry, I don't know why I thought Pam. Maybe it was because Daniel, and I thought Pam too when you said that. So Paula, was that the name? I'm not going to back scroll. It just throws things off, and it's hard. I'm 5 minutes behind. Remember, I was only 3 minutes behind. Kim sounds anxious, wants to keep this case in front. People are all hauled in. I know when I get anxious, I sound like I had a pot of coffee. Well, and when you're in a really stressful situation and things are dangerous, you get anxious and you sound nutty. When you're describing things that sound untrue, even if they are true, it makes you look bad. People want to question you. Also, because it's easier to say, well, maybe you're just crazy, than it is to say, oh, wow, we might have an entire police department there that is not good. That's a tough thing to admit. And we all know that that's going on in different places. I think it's harder for them to stay not good and be in those positions when people can discover that, like with social media, which is why they hate social media. And I don't want to get into it. I like to stay in my lane and stay focused. I'm waiting for Larissa to do another video. There have been 3 or 4 local callers who are saying one thing in common: cover up and law enforcement corruption. Well, Heather, it's my opinion that those things are obvious. 100%. 100%. And yeah, Hard Truth is good. She's got a great channel. She's got a good brain. Sorry for that. You're fine, Michael. Thanks. And good morning, Jazz King and Daniel. And we will get to the truth. We need the top person who is controlling all this justice will be served. And sometimes the police chief is not the one in charge. They're just like a puppet. Who's the puppet master? She's the lady that called another creator, I believe Paula as well. I think that we've all stumbled on some very deep corruption going to the top. Makes me believe that the truth may never come out. Dana, it may, though. It may have already come out. Subconscious mouth is good. I agree. Paula is her name. Okay, good. We've got that determined. I think we have multiple Western states that are not good. Your yard is beautiful. Isn't it odd? It isn't odd and needs more attention. Sorry, I'm having trouble reading this. Lee, welcome. Let me try to read it. I think you might have a little typo. Isn't odd and needs more attention is that the frat party Ethan, Xana, and others were at, and were the kids on the field coming from that same party. So yes, isn't it odd and it needs more attention, the frat party that Ethan, Xana, and others were at, and others meaning Bethany, allegedly. She says she was there. And were the kids on the field coming from that same party. So yeah, the fraternity is just right across that field. It's right. It's not even across the field, is it? It's just like down a stairway and then the field. I don't know. I haven't been there. I haven't been to the campus. And, we've all looked at the maps. We've all looked at the videos. And until you go to a place, it's really hard to get a feeling for it, which is why it's so important for jurors to go to the locations where things happen. It makes a huge difference. I don't care if you have a 3D video imprint of it, you still need to go there if you really want to get a good feeling for how things went down. But yeah, it's odd that that Bethany and the story with Fry was that they didn't know where Ethan and Xana were from about 9 o'clock until 1:45. And then was it when the affidavit came out that it was in one of the affidavits, but not the other? I think it was in Payne's, but not Blaker's, that said that Bethany reported that she was at the frat party and that Ethan and Xana were there. And then all of a sudden they were accounted for that almost 5 hours that was missing. And I don't buy it. It was sort of like, oh, just check that off. Now we got it covered. We're good. Where's the video or still shots of them leaving the party when we have the club and grub truck focusing only Kaylee and Maddie as like it's a push narrative? Very good comment. Thank you. And Rhonda, do you ever think Brian could have been there a lot at that house and maybe he did go there late hours seeing one of the surviving victims people? People do it all the time, have secret relationships. Absolutely. And I think early on in this case, people were suspecting that Kaylee had dated Brian one time, and then he was, it's not allowing me to tag that one. Anyway, I'll just read it again. You ever think Brian could have been there a lot at that house? Maybe he did go there late hours seeing one of the survivors. People do it all the time, have secret relationships. So people were speculating that he had a thing with Kaylee, and then people were speculating that he was obsessed with Maddie. And then I think some people have suspected Dylan and Koberger and Bethany and Koberger. Honestly, for all we know, he was having relations with more than one of them, for all we know. I'm not saying that he was. That's a subconscious mouth thing, and I love it when he says that. I'm not saying that he was. I'm not saying that he wasn't. I'm just saying look at the options, right? For all we know, there's so much more to the story, and I'm sure there is so much more to this story. There always is. These things do not happen in a vacuum. Sure, you've got your rando situations like Ted Bundy 30, 40 years ago when he went into that sorority in Florida. And then there's the other guy in Gainesville that went to the sorority, another sorority in Florida. I think that one was in the 90s. Those random things do happen, but these days, almost every single fraternity and sorority has surveillance, videotape surveillance inside and out, because they have problems and they have safety issues and there's theft and, there's a lot to keep tabs on. So we know that there's a lot of electronic data that we're not privy to, obviously. So also, I think that the Papa Roger account, and what was the other one, the Josco 172, I said this in my short video on Saturday night, that police should have the IP addresses of where those originated. But let's just say that they originated with somebody that is on the inside with them. They're not going to disclose that. And I have my suspicions. I was fooled too up front. I thought the visual snow, I thought Papa Roger, I thought Josco 1972. I thought all of them were Koberger. I mean, I'm not completely gaslight resistant. I try to be, but it's impossible. I'm as gullible as anybody else. And we want to be able to trust people, and we should be able to trust people, but no, we can't, unfortunately, especially in a situation like this. It's healthy to be skeptical of everyone and every content creator, including me, because what's my agenda? I mean, seriously, you never know. Some of these content creators are sent on a mission. We know this. We've seen this before. So yeah, thank you for that wise comment, Lee. You ever think, Brian? Okay, I read that one. And that was the one that wouldn't highlight when I was trying to. It still won't highlight it. That's weird. What was Dylan doing all night? Just think it's odd his lawyer wanted to talk to just one of the survivors. You know, it's really odd, Rhonda, that subpoena was actually quashed, and that the interview that they have scheduled is actually not a deposition. I had that incorrect because it's so unusual. And I forget which content creator it was a couple of days ago that said it's very gangster like. It reminds me of like the backroom meetings at, kitchen counters from movies. Like, it can't be off the record. That's ridiculous. So even though they're technically saying it's not a deposition, I don't believe that. And I don't know about Idaho, if they're like a single party recording. Every state has their own law as far as if you can record a conversation legally without the other person's knowledge. And many states, you can do that legally. And even if you're in a state where it's not legal, people still do it. They just, can get in trouble for it. But will they get in trouble for it? It depends. So as a veteran of two branches, I'm excited to head to Mission Barbecue for Armed Forces this week for lunch. Thanks to all who have served in public services. Yes, thank you for serving. That's awesome. Thanks for reading my comments. Being I have a parent as you are. You're awesome. Thanks. That's nice. I found this channel yesterday, Crime Crazy and Critters on the Farm. It's a great name. I have not found that one. That did videos on the Kylie Rodney case and has some really great videos on that case. Interesting. I love the name of the channel. And Lee says typo. So yeah, I figured that was a typo. I just didn't know what. Let's see. Look at her video. Was there more people in the car? Who are they? Crime Story Diva. Hello. I do not know if Brian did this crime, but there's so much reasonable doubt that he did do it. He may get away with it. But I think I read that wrong. Let's see. And it's not letting me highlight. In my opinion, I do not know if Brian did this crime, but there's so much reasonable doubt that if he did do it, he may get away with it. And wouldn't that be tragic? I mean, these families have got to find some justice, to find any peace, to get any resolve, to be able to move on, I mean, the healing process is lifelong. The PTSD is lifelong. But the information is powerful. And even if it's information that they would rather not know, they need to know it in order to heal. You can't possibly heal from something that you don't even know what it is. In my experience as a professional, you cannot heal and recover from a trauma that you don't know what happened because you're still being lied to about it. You have to get the facts, no matter how harsh, in my opinion, in my professional opinion. If you look at that video, it's in the live section. Convicting the wrong person is also not justice. So, Heather, there was a guy here, and I always forget his name, here in Ohio, this past November of 2022, who won a $45 million lawsuit against the state of Ohio, or against the local police department. I think it was Miami Township Police Department, that he served 24 years for 3 essays that he did not commit, and he was finally exonerated after serving 24 years. He was exonerated by DNA evidence, and he was, I think, from the Innocence Project in Cincinnati at the University of Cincinnati or something like that. Anyway, the police officer that convicted him, that handled the investigation, completely destroyed evidence that proved that he wasn't the criminal, and fabricated evidence. And the man has spoken so eloquently, like not only for himself, but for these victims, that here they went 24 years thinking that their attacker had been locked up and that there was justice. And now to find out that their attacker never got justice. And it only takes me back to one question, like, who's the attacker, and why would this police officer do this to this innocent man? He was in his 20s and he had a job at a car and automobile factory. So a pretty decent career. And he got taken out of that career. He got put in the slammer. And 24 years later, he finally gets out. And then he wins $45 million. And you can easily find it on Google, but like I said, I always forget his name when I bring him up without planning on it. But he's not the only one. And you have to ask yourself, why would this police officer do that to this guy? What did this police officer have against this guy? Did he have anything against this guy, or was he just finding a patsy because he did it, or he knows the person that did it? It was his friend or brother, or like, why would a police officer do that? And then they don't only make themselves look bad, they make the whole profession look bad. It's disgusting. It's so despicable. So I've missed a couple. Let's see. Yeah, Snickering Snell works for Doug Wilson. Aaron Snell is the music director for Logos School, looking more like the Simpsons inflation crisis episode every day. Yeah, I've heard somebody mention that in the, I think last night, Rachel. I'm not really sure what all that's about. Let's see if I can highlight that. Why am I not able to highlight these things? Oh, here we go. It's working again. Cool. She has a picture of the party night where Kylie was wearing a varsity jacket. Are you talking about the Kylie Rodney case? Also wearing that in the car, she had a lady who has more than 20 years experience video editing who talks about it. Huh. If he's not guilty and is found guilty, a killer will walk free. Should want that. I know families want justice, but I would want the right people locked up. Exactly. It's almost worse to have the wrong people locked up. And it probably is worse. It absolutely, like, I need to think that through. Of course it's worse. You know, you think that you have some relief and you really don't. Talk about getting psyched out and getting gaslit. What she saw after cleaning up the picture. I agree. And she still talks about what she saw after cleaning up a still picture from the AWP video in the car. Interesting. Yeah. So I often go over to the Kylie Rodney case. Somebody back in the chat was mentioning that there are some connecting factors. I believe that there's some connecting factors. I don't know that they're necessarily like connected directly, but there's some consistencies, like, in my opinion, questionable law enforcement, to say the least, and the ever-changing alibis and the protecting of the last people to see the deceased. The last people to see, talk to, interact with a victim are your primary persons of interest, and often suspects. But to protect those people is asinine. And that's happened in both of these cases. So right there, that's very, very strange. Very strange. She talks about what she saw. Okay, I read that one. The doppelgangers and repeat names are crazy, Dana. I agree. So do you guys remember when that party picture first came out? Sammy released the one party picture from the Kylie Rodney disappearance with all the people lined up, and it kind of looked like they were looking in maybe something out in the foreground. And there were two people, two young women that looked like they could have been Kylie Rodney. And they were both wearing white hoodies and black skinny jeans and white socks and white shoes. And the picture was from behind of most people. And both of those girls, it was just the backs of their heads. And Sammy identified the one on the right in the photograph. She said that was Kylie when she first produced that picture, and that's the only alleged party picture, I think. I mean, then there's the Be Real ones. I'm still suspicious of all those photographs of Kylie that I did a community post of, saying that I was suspicious of, where she looks like she's been harmed and she's in the picture. And like that Be Real one with the three girls in the back of the car, and the one that looks to me like it's Kylie. Some people say it is her, some people say it isn't her. And it's like a Weekend at Bernie's kind of picture, you guys. I mean, these stories are just abhorrent, absolutely abhorrent. And then, we've all heard the rumors that something was going on with taking video images inside of the 1122 King Road residence when these attacks happened, right? Yes, I appreciate all the thoughts on the case, but as I too have followed it, I've sat in the stillness of my days and will keep asking myself, how could these two survived and not know anything beforehand? Lee, I really like your comment. I could understand maybe how they didn't know anything beforehand, but I really like your comment. They could have been threatened during or after and not known about it beforehand. But obviously they're witnesses. And why would the police chief try to say, well, they were there, but they weren't witnesses? I said it very tongue in cheek in one of my videos last week. If you look up the definition of witness, it basically says somebody who was there. I mean, in so many words, seriously. So why on earth would he try to say, no, they're not witnesses, they were simply there? Even if they didn't see things, being there by definition makes them witnesses. So WTF? The man is smarmy. He's got zero integrity, in my opinion. And yeah, he's the lead of the whole department. Therefore, the whole department is shady, in my opinion. Let's see, we're getting close to an hour. I want to go ahead and wrap it up. Let me look at my notes and see. I'm sure there's something that I have forgotten here. I wanted to go back to the videotape, the police body cam of Koberger in that pullover from October of 2022 with the female officer. There's been so much back and forth and people attacking me for my opinion about it. And we don't need to attack each other for having different opinions. I mean, I support anyone's opinion of that video. However, I've rewatched it many times. And to me, in my opinion, it's like Koberger sees outfoxing law enforcement as a sport. And once he sees that he got his foot in with his interactions with this police officer, he's trying to throw her off balance. So first thing he says when she says, I pulled you over because you ran a red light. And he says, actually, this is what happened. And that's nuts. You don't tell a police officer what happened. Again, in my opinion, he's argumentative. He's interrupting her. And then when he gets to the point where he says, oh, well, did you see the whole thing that happened right before the stuff that you said you saw happened? I mean, it's going to be on her dash cam, but even if what he said is accurate, and I don't have faith that what he said is accurate, he was trying to convolute the whole thing. He was trying to talk about all these other crazy drivers that were not using turn signals and were speeding and stopping short, and he was just doing his best to not hit them. And so what he did was just defensive driving. And when he starts apologizing, oh, I'm sorry if I asked too many questions, she already told him she wasn't going to give him a ticket. So he already knew that he had succeeded. And it's my opinion that he might have been afraid she would change her mind. And that's why he apologized. I think he is 100% gamey. I don't think that if he is on the spectrum, as some people have suggested, I don't think that has anything to do with it. And personally, I think that that's discounting and insulting towards people that are on the spectrum, because we know this guy is smart, and you don't have to be smart to know that you don't back up in an intersection. And he says it twice. He says, oh, so I should just back up. And then at the end, he says, okay, so back up. He's being a pig. He's being an absolute pig. And I'm not saying that that makes him guilty of anything other than being a jerk and possibly being a prime target for law enforcement that he might be working with if they hired him for that assistantship, which I'm so suspicious that they did, because they could have cleared themselves a long time ago and said, no, we hired so-and-so. And somebody tried to come into one of my chats a couple of months ago and said, oh, well, they hired 2 women. Victoria somebody and the one who is the assistant chief now. I'm forgetting her name. But Victoria also works for WSUPD or works for Wazoo. Both of these women are full-time employees of Washington State University. They're not going to get hired for an assistantship with Pullman PD. That's just not going to happen. So who got hired for that freaking internship that Brian interviewed for? His interview went very well. The emails were very positive back and forth between him and Chief Jenkins. And then for them to say that they don't have any information on what happened after that is bogus. Even if they shredded the documents, they could just say nothing happened after that. But they're not even saying nothing happened. They're saying we have no idea. And they have an idea. Trust me. Or if you don't want to trust me, then that's okay. Okay. Let's see. Who is Aaron Snell? Wife, son of Snickering Snell. Love the name. Yeah, I don't know who Aaron Snell is. I appreciate your opinion at criminal defendant red light. You're a trained psychologist. I would have never noticed. I have been rainbows and unicorns about people my whole life. I appreciate your comment, Annie Ruler, because I too, when I first watched that, like everyone else or like so many other people, I was like, wow, he was so polite and she was so polite. And okay, it was all hunky dory. It took watching it many times. He's a good gaslighter. He's a master manipulator. I'm not saying that he's guilty of anything other than being a master manipulator. I think a lot of people have misinterpreted me talking about that, saying, well, if he was being a master manipulator, then obviously he did the whole freaking thing all by his big old self. No, I still like, that's not my opinion at all. So my opinion is that being a master manipulator, and I started to say this and got sidetracked. Imagine him going into these police departments as a 28-year-old with a master's degree, working on his doctorate degree, with this attitude of, I'm going to help you guys learn how to collect evidence more better than how you're collecting it, because you guys are too stupid to know what you're doing, even though you've been doing it for years. I've never done it, and I'm going to tell you how to do it. That's essentially my take on his stance with what I've seen of his applications for the departments. His idea was that he stated that his goal was to help these departments gather forensic digital evidence in rural cases more efficiently. So he's basically coming in saying, I'm going to teach you guys how to do this better, even though I've never done it. I'm going to teach you guys how to do it better. No one's going to like that. And then if he's got this attitude, like I've said, with this female police officer, when he's being pulled over and he's trying to talk his way out of a ticket, and he's being gamey. Oh, I really want to say this. Every time he opens his mouth, please go back and watch that body cam footage. I have it attached in the description to my 8-minute video from Saturday night. Every time he opens his mouth and says something like, oh, well, I'm from Pennsylvania and we don't have crosswalks where I'm from, he hears himself say it and he realizes he's digging himself deeper, and he stops himself. He literally stops himself each time he says something like that. When he says, oh, well, I was just a little bit in the intersection, he stops himself because he's like, oh man, I'm admitting guilt that I knew I was a little bit in the intersection. He's a very sharp cookie, obviously. I wouldn't say smart, because if he was smart, he would just be a nice person, in my opinion. So I am going to wrap up here. I'm going to read Sarah Q. If they admitted that he worked for the police and was like, he's a bad apple on a liver, more people might believe it's KB. But as of now, they give us nothing, no connections. It's weird. Well, and see, I'm not saying that somebody the other day said, oh, so you think that they hired him as a hitman? No, I think they hired him for the assistantship. And then he got caught up in whatever project they were working on, and then they tried to hang him out to dry. That's what they're doing right now. I caught a Walking Dead man podcast with Special Agent Aaron Snell. He's the spokesperson for ISP. Oh, thank you, Rachel. Awesome. Yeah, I knew I heard the name, but I'm not very familiar. His wife is Amy, and she has 5 kids under 18. So have a wonderful day, everyone. And for those of you that don't know, I have 4 kids aging in age range from 11 to 22. The 2 oldest and the youngest are girls. I got 2 teenage boys in the middle. It's a busy life. But you know, they were fabulous. What did they do for me yesterday? They made me breakfast. They wrote me the sweetest cards in the world and the cutest cards in the world. They gave me gifts. They took me for a walk, and they helped me clean all freaking day, almost. A couple of them, 3 of the 4 pooped out. The oldest one was the only one who like stuck it out, but still, man, best Mother's Day ever. So I'm very appreciative. I hope you guys had a really good Mother's Day. It's hard when your mother's passed away and you don't have her, but on a closing note, I wanted to mention how hard this first Mother's Day must be for the mothers of these victims, and every Mother's Day for the mothers of these victims, for each one of them, for Kaylee's mother, for Xana's mother, for Ethan's mother, especially for Maddie's mother. She was their only child. And when someone has a child that passes away, that's awful no matter what. When that's your only child, you can go through an identity crisis, like that you're not a parent anymore, where of course you're still a parent. It's just that your child is not with us anymore. But I just want to say prayers for these families, and especially for Madison's mother, but really especially for all of them. I mean, how devastating. And I couldn't help but think about that on Saturday and all day yesterday. And I wanted to mention that right here, that this was the first Mother's Day for these families. And, you know, they're going to have anniversaries, they're going to have birthdays. And then the whole thing with the college posthumous degrees. I'm sorry. I'm really scratching my head over that. I just think that that's like a PR move. And I think it's tacky personally. All right. Monique says, I have 2 girls and 1 grandson. What a great life. I have no grandkids yet, but since my oldest is 21, my oldest boy is almost 19. It could happen. I'd love to know how many versions DM and BF gave, and watch you talk to them to get to the truth. Maybe how they were coached by Ellie to give how they should say it. I also want to say same thing about JD. He is not off the hook, in my opinion. I don't believe this narrative. I think it's a false narrative. And for all of these people that were cleared so quickly, and it was Kylie's mother and family that said that they were all cleared within the first hour. And I'm sorry, you can't like completely check out somebody's story and cross-reference and know that somebody's innocent that quickly unless it was just part of the design, in my opinion. So I'm going to hold up my little thumb thing again. Oh, I almost dropped it. Please hit that like button. Thank you so much for being here, you guys. I'm hoping to get back into my live stream routine. And share, subscribe, hit your notification button. I would like to ask you guys, if you like these videos, if you think that they're appropriate for different like Facebook groups and stuff, please post them. That helps so much with the channel's growth. I used to do that a lot in Facebook groups before I got into YouTube and off of Facebook. I used to always post the content creators videos that I liked. And I think it really, really helps the channel grow. And I would appreciate that. So I am glad that my channel's been small, but I feel like I'm ready for it to continue to grow. If that's what is, you know, in the cards, we'll see. Anyway, thanks so much for being here. Have a great rest of your day and take really good care of yourself. Take really good care of the people around you, and do something nice for yourself. Do something nice for someone else. It makes you feel so good to do nice things for other people. It's almost like it's greedy and selfish, in my opinion, to do nice things for other people because it makes you feel so good. And, you know, being altruistic by definition, in my opinion, is not sheer altruism. It's very self-serving, but in a really positive way. So I think that's wonderful. And, you know, just, it's really good self-care to take care of the people around you. Make sure you get your exercise, your sunlight, fresh air, sleep. That's the most important. Staying relaxed, being kind, being honest. When you're not honest, it raises your stress level. It's literally bad for your heart. And that is one other point that I wanted to say about PTSD, is that a lot of the symptoms of that type of stress and going through lawsuits and depositions and trials and hearings, it's a very physiological experience that takes place. And, you know, just pray for these family members and that they are able to take care of themselves. And things like rest and nourishment are the first to go when you're stressed out. So keeping a routine is really, really important. And that can be your exercise. That can be your sleep hygiene and sleep schedule. Keeping good hygiene too, but sleep hygiene is a whole nother thing. And sometimes scheduled meal times. I mean, schedules do wonders for bringing order to chaos. So think about that for yourself if you're dealing with some stressful stuff. Peace out. Have a great rest of your day. See you on the next one. Thank you so much for being here. Sending you light, sending you love, and happy Monday.